Hi guys! 5 things from my childhood. Let's get started. The first thing I used to do as a child that might be a little weird is that I talked and named trees. There was this park where I lived around 3rd grade. We moved about every 2 years or so. There was this tree that was kind of bent over a hill, so that kind of like, if you sat on the farther branches of it, then you could be like floating over the hill because it went down. I named that tree Lucy, and I talked to that tree, and I remember it was like the worst thing ever when a group of kids came to play war, because that's what kids do. They play war with each other. And they played it all over Lucy, and they had sticks, and they were breaking things off of her, and they were hitting her, and just being bad to her, and it made me so upset, and I was one little girl, and I was trying to be like, hey guys, don't do that to my friend Lucy, but of course they didn't listen, and eventually I had to just be upset about it too. There were these little things that were like little, like, fluffy with seeds in them, which were basically just seeds blowing out to go, you know, from plants that were going to get planted somewhere else, just by wind and, you know, pollination and all that. Well, they would float through the air, and sometimes they'd be kind of, you know, down to the ground where I could see them as a kid, and I would chase after them and pretend that I was chasing spirits, and I called them cottonseed, you know, for the real name, because I didn't know what else to call them, and I would chase them, and I had this little box that I kept them in until they kind of withered away, and I was collecting them if I caught them, but sometimes I'd chase them so far that eventually they would just fly up into the air and I wouldn't be able to catch them. But yeah, I had a huge imagination and I liked to pretend that I was chasing spirits. Number 3. There was this one place we lived that had really great stuff. I grew up in Hawaii, so I saw a lot of plants and pretty places and pretty things. But there was this one area that was just so good, and the way that I remember it is just like a fairy tale. So the way that our house was, there was a hill in the doghouse and there was a fence, and across that fence was a shortcut to get to the park, otherwise you'd have to go all the way around, and nobody did that. So all the kids in our neighborhood would hop the fence. So, of course, since we lived there, we would hop the fence too. So right next to that, then there's this little tiny patch of sunflower daisy things. Then right after that, there was this little shaded area that was right behind the apartments that were on the other side of the fence that had trees that were shading and roots coming up, and there were white mushrooms poking out. I never ate them, but I liked picking them out. I don't know why, but I liked pulling them out of the ground. And it was just a mini forest, and it was the best thing ever. Right after that, you come to the park and you have your swings and your slides, but what was next to it was way better. There was this hill that kind of had plants that seemed like pine trees to me, and they were all over, and so there was pine needles all over, and there was little thickets and little kind of alcoves that you could squeeze into. The kids around the neighborhood used to say that there were wild boars around there, because there are wild boars on the island. I lived in Oahu, so people would always be afraid to go up there. I remember there was this one really nice place that I liked where I'd climb all the way up, and then I could just be in this little kind of, like, little mini, just enclosed area that I could just squeeze into, and I just liked being there to relax and pretend that I was doing adventures. That was so great, growing up around all that kind of environment, because it was so magical. Number 4. Also related to my childhood adventures, I remember the first time I went to a dollar store. I remember walking in there and thinking, whoa, everything in here is $1? Oh my gosh. But I remember the first thing that I ever got at a dollar store. I picked out this little kind of blue glass bottle thing that had one of those stopper tops where you can, you know, use the metal bits and then the cork and it kind of just, you know, stays in. And it was clear and turquoise and had little bubbles in the glass. It was a little bit flawed. And I would keep water in there. And that's what I would use on my adventures. It was the best thing ever. Number 5. This one happened around maybe 4th or 5th grade, because I was in that school for 4th and 5th grade, so I don't remember which one it was. But I remember that I didn't have any friends yet, and I really liked reading. So when I went out to the recess, I just would bring a chapter book with me and read it on the bench. Well, the teachers didn't want that, because, you know, what do you think it is, school or something? So they said that I couldn't read, and I had to go play with some friends. And I said, what friends? I have books. Books are my friends. But because of that, they said, hey, you can't bring chapter books out. Around that time is when I finally got my school clothes for the year. And I had all these, like, plaid shirts, little button-up shirts that had little, like, jean skirts, you know, the things that are shorts, but they have a little thing in the front to make it look like a skirt. In the front of the skirt, there's a huge pocket. 4 sets of these in, like, 4 different colors. And so I would just flip the chapter book into the big pocket and walk out and then read, and if I saw teachers coming, I would move to somewhere else. And so I smuggled the books out into the playground at school. What a dirty, filthy criminal I was in 4th or 5th grade. So, that's 5. Thank you guys for watching. As usual, you can find links to things that I do down in the description, and I hope you guys have a nice day. Bye!